Someone's going to go for two and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number one, shocker, Ironton.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go. Into overtime, presented by Perfection One. My name is John Bruce, along with Shayne Combs. This is episode 73 of the Southern Ohio Sports Authority's flagship podcast. I'll get it. I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row I've struggled with that, but I'm
trying
trying
to get a big hang in there. You know what I mean? You get to a 162 game baseball season, and you just got to take a deep breath ready for postseason.
Yeah, exactly. I got my Marlins shirt on again.
Yes.
I had mentioned that. It was
Go Marlins.
go Marlins. I'm a Cubs fan, but I enjoy seeing the Mets not get in because I have never went to a game and felt like the home team cared less than when I went and watched the Mets beginning of August. So I was right as they were like in the midst of their free fall. So congrats to the Reds.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as a Reds fan, my whole life, tell people of all ages, we know this only happens a couple times a decade or whatever. So you take it how you get it, and you're excited just to have an opportunity to go play next week.
Yeah, the Dodgers are very good, but at the same time, I think the Reds have the advantage in starting pitching. So I mean, you got that going for you. So and didn't have to use Hunter Green today. So
Yeah, well, a lot of times people talk about this. Even kind of goes into the theme of what we're talking about: how you go down the stretch and how you win a league, or how you get in the playoffs, or what you get this seed. You get what you earn throughout your whole body of work. There's no backing in. You know what I mean? Like the Reds went into this weekend won 2 out of 3, where the Mets didn't. I mean, the Reds went and played a Milwaukee team that won 97 games. They're like 52 and 29 at home. They won 2 out of 3. So like you get what you get throughout that whole body of work. They won the tiebreaker with the Mets. So I think that kind of leads into the night's theme a little bit in terms of it's why you play to the whistle, and then it's why you never quit on your schedule. It's why you continue to play every game, and then you add them all up at the end and see what you've earned.
Exactly. Now, just going back on the Mets real quick, the Reds and Mets both play the Cubs. Reds take 4 out of 4. The Mets take 1 out or 2 out of 3, but still that one loss ends up being vital, down the stretch. But as you mentioned, we're getting into conference play. Some teams are into the postseason already, which we'll talk about both throughout the show, and then others are about to do their tournament seeding. So this is a big week coming up. We got week 7. We got a couple of really big football games coming up. We had a couple of huge ones this past week. We got some big soccer, big volleyball matches that are going to be for tournament seeding this week. But also, as we mentioned later in the show, we're going to talk tournament time for golf and then getting ready for it for cross country. So when do you think it goes from being like, go time, we're trying, like we're working on the league, maybe get out of the league race, but you got to really tighten up and get urgent getting ready for the postseason?
It's really a question that probably takes on a life of its own throughout every team, every program, every sport, even because when you look at it from a standpoint of it's go time when games start counting for real. You work all off season and you go through your preseason or whatnot, and when you start counting games, I think it's fair to say it's go time. As I just said, they're all going to count, they're all going to add up. But at the same time, I think we would agree that not every program's in the same spot. Not every program has the same expectation. What might be realistic for some teams is to compete for a league title. Maybe other teams, hey, we're trying to finish in the top half. Maybe there are some teams that are working through some things and they do want to play their best, of whatever down the stretch. Some sports have championships where it's one day at the end of the year and then they go right in the postseason, such as a cross country. Others are in a 14-game, 10-game grind in a home and away. Football, it's one round where you lose to that one team head to head. That's it. You know what I mean? So it probably takes on a life of its own. I would think that a lot of it has to do with the expectation of what it is you're building for. But when you start to get down the stretch, it's a little harder to finish. You start to see the brackets start to come up a little bit. The seeds are on the line. Playoff points are on the line in football. I think the pressure starts to mount a little bit, and I think you can feel it a little bit when you call the games, when you're at the games, certainly when you coach and play the games. But Yeah, does that make sense to you? I think it's probably looks different for a lot of different people, but I think we've certainly entered a time where these things really, really start to matter.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, it's all important, but it does build up a little bit more later in the season as you prepare for the tournament. Or like if you're a football team that is working at rebuilding, each week is very important. Maybe you're not getting to week 11, but it's that, hey, we finished in the top half after we hadn't finished in the top half for the past
Yeah.
decade.
Can we win 4 games when we've only won 1 or
Right.
2? Because what's done is done. That's the
Mhm.
other part of
Yeah.
sports. Even though it's been real important, they all count. It goes back to the cliche of what's done is done. Play in the present, play with what we've still
Mhm.
got in front of us there. So I think that's a big point to make as well.
Yeah, it's very important to always be preparing for the future, but also respecting the past, but also getting ready for that next week. Trying to go 1-0 each week, 1-0 each game, each time out. You're trying to get better, but you're also trying to put that W on your side of the placard.
No, well,
Yeah,
no question, and
yeah,
I think we're gonna go across a lot of examples on the football side where even though it was, you know, a middle week out of the 10
mm,
weeks, we may look back at a couple of these and be like, man, remember that head to head back there at the
hmm
end of September? Imagine if that game would have went the other way, what the computer points would look like. So that again, it all adds up, and we're really getting to that important time where you really got to go here.
Yeah, and we'll talk computer points. There's a couple of different results from this past week that'll have some big factors on computer points. Um, Anything that we talk about Friday nights, we have the Haynes Total Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show here on YouTube. I won't be on it this week, but we typically have several coaches call in, and you hear different viewpoints for things like that. Road eats, overtime. Make sure you subscribe and click the notifications, get the notifications whenever we go live or whenever a new video gets posted here on our YouTube page because we have a lot of interviews with young athletes as well. We've had SOSA sound bites, also shorts. We've had a couple of really big plays that have got gone sort of viral in a way,
Mhm.
and we'd appreciate if everyone got out and liked, subscribed, all that stuff to help us out as well, and that way you don't miss any information. But moving on into week 6 of football, and we'll preview week 7 coming up, but week 6 had a few really big games. The biggest down in Wheelersburg at Ed Miller Stadium. Wheelersburg 24, Ironton 15. A fairly big upset when you look at what happened last year. Ironton state champions. Ironton and Wheelersburg played twice. Ironton completely dominated both of those games. But you're at Ed Miller Stadium. Things are different on the road. Um, Dealt with some adversity throughout the week, Ironton did, but they come in and Wheelersburg just came off of a dominating win the week before at Lucasville Valley, and they looked like kind of what we when we saw them down at Valley, we are like, man, this team's really good. If Ironton's supposed to be that much better than this team, how good is Ironton? But I think Wheelersburg showed that they are the real deal too, because that's a very, very good Ironton team, and Wheelersburg gets the 9-point victory.
Yeah, no, that's my takeaway from this is, we no one needs to like research how good Ironton's really good. Yeah, I
Mhm,
mean, for obvious reasons that we already know over the last calendar year and again already this year. What I do know is watching Wheelersburg in person the week
mhm,
before, it was just a wow factor. You know what I mean? From the way they warmed up athletically to just watching them do certain things, the bigger, faster, stronger, and then their flawless execution, and the special teams defensively, of course, offensively. It was just really, really impressive. It was really explosive. Now going in, I think it was fair to call Ironton the favorite just because
mhm.
they're the team that had kind of been on top and had been there, done that. But but look, you still felt like this was a really competitive football game, and to Wheelersburg's credit, they you can tell this has been building over the last probably 9 to 14 months there, depending
Mhm.
on how you look at it in the weight room and in practice and so forth. And they come out and go toe to toe and get on top, and then were they able to put the thing away.
Yeah, so it was a back and forth game throughout. So Elijah Brown broke the ice early for Wheelersburg with a short touchdown run. Caden Edwards responded, and then a field goal from Ironton gave them a 9-7 lead. And it was just kind of they were just trading the lead back and forth. But a key on the first possession, Ironton went for two, didn't get it. So even though they hit the field goal and they have a capable field goal kicker, they went for two, which I think they typically do anyway. They typically go for two after that first touchdown. But then early in the third quarter, Braylon Rucker connects with Xavier Miller for a 25-yard touchdown pass. Cooper Heimbach hits the extra point. They're at 14-9. Caden Edwards scores again, and they go for two again and don't get it. So then it's 15-14. Ironton's up. Cooper Heimbach hit. Did you see the field goal?
I did not. I
Oh,
heard.
okay.
I
Yeah.
heard the update, but I did not
Yeah.
see it.
So Cooper Heimbach hits a 43-yard field goal to give the Pirates the lead. Like,
Now, watching him the week before almost show off in warm-up,
yes, yeah.
that doesn't surprise me. I mean,
Well,
that seems like a light snack for that young man.
well, the biggest thing on it was so he drilled it through the uprights, but it almost went over the net behind
I
the
believe
field
it.
goal post because like it was good from 55, 60,
Yeah.
like just drilled it. Gives the Pirates a 17-15 lead, and then an Elijah Brown 18-yard touchdown run with 112 to play seals the upset for the Pirates. And at this point, I mean, they were 27-point underdogs on Fantastic 50, who's pretty close on a lot of games. So that's why I'd say upset, but at the same time, Wheelersburg has shown
Yeah.
that they're the
Yeah.
real deal throughout this season.
And when I say show it off at warm-up, I was
Yes.
kidding. I was meaning that like the young man was going back to like 35, 40 to get loose. You know what I mean? Like he showed off some range,
Mm,
and we've talked about that, how much of an X factor that can be. And look, the 2-point conversion thing, you get it throughout the course of the year. I know there's a lot of analytics that
mhm,
go into that and some different things. Key stops for the defense there. Then
mhm,
what happens is you do chase that point. We'll talk about that a little bit in the Chillicothe Miami Trace
mhm.
game later. You do chase that point a little bit, and it does start to add up. Once you don't get it the second time, now that point's it's
Right.
out there and you'll never get it back
Yeah.
type of thing. And it's I agree with you. It certainly played a role in making it keeping it the one
Yeah.
possession game, I should say.
Yeah, because once Brown scores that touchdown with 112 to go and Heimbach hits that extra point to make it a 9-point game, the game's over.
Right.
But with 112 left, if you're down 7-8, with how dynamic Ironton can be offensively,
Right.
you
Yeah,
still have
yeah,
a
yeah,
chance.
yeah. If you have a snap left, you have a chance because you have
Mm,
way too many home run hitters, way
mm.
too many guys that can take it to the house on any snap.
Yeah, but, one of the things and I know you were calling the game, and usually they take it down quickly. At one point, I looked, they had over 4,000 people watching on the Berg Sports Network, and put that along with the amount of people that were there in Ed Miller Stadium, and this was one of the, biggest games in the state of Ohio, regardless of division, and it was in Division 5 in the Southeast. We talked about it last week on Overtime, how important this game was to Southeast Ohio, and those 2 just came out and just battled for 48 minutes, and I think really showed how good Southeastern Ohio football can be.
That's well said because if you weren't with us last week, what we were talking about is, John and I have been at this high school sports thing for a long, long time, and the hardest thing, regardless of the sport, is getting some Southeast District credibility on a statewide
Mm,
basis. And we talked about how Wheelersburg and Ironton going out and playing a great game, which they did, was really, really big for our area
mhm,
because we knew this would have eyeballs way beyond the Southeast District. Obviously, everybody in our district or our listening area we interested in this
yeah,
matchup for obvious reasons. But I bet you this probably ended up drawing a lot of attention from outside of
mhm,
our viewing area, knowing that these are two more of state brands,
mhm.
when it comes to football. So yeah, big, big win for the Southeast District in terms of football, just from a credibility standpoint.
Yeah, it was a very good game, and as we said, it's just got a lot of eyes on the Southeast, showing what type of talent there are. Right now, they're 1-2 in their region. I don't know where you put a regional final if it's between those two. I think you probably got to go towards Athens, probably if you're going to go anywhere.
Well, again, you hope selfishly they keep it down here in our area
Yeah,
and make it a real local feel.
like maybe the only place big enough could be Jackson. I mean, really, if you're staying in a high school stadium. But yeah, that would be fantastic for our area if we got that as a regional championship game. And I'm sure the folks at Ironton are hoping to get that
Sure.
rematch. And for Wheelersburg, like you said, they've been building for this. They're okay with the rematch because, they showed what they can do on the field, and we saw 'em in week 5, week 6 also, they were very impressive. So,
No question.
uh, getting to our game, one of the better games in the area as well. So it was a really good game. Um, I only saw a little bit of it, and when I left, it was 14-0. The team that lost was up. So 35-21, Miami Trace over Chillicothe. Shane, what can you tell us about that game?
Incredible game. Incredible
Mhm.
game. Everything we thought it would be going in because, all week long in preparation, I felt like it was a coin flip game, and I couldn't really decide who really has the favor. At the end of the day, I said, okay, I guess I'll give Miami Trace a little bit because of the home field.
Mhm.
I do think that matters a little bit, and so going in, I expected it to be a really tight game, one of our more competitive stream games, and it ended
Yeah.
up being just that. As you mentioned, Chillicothe got out 14-0, and Miami Trace had trouble possessing the ball early. Even on their second possession, I think it was, they tried to take a shot. Just that's not really their character. They tried to take a shot almost to loosen the defense. Well, ended up being picked off. So Chillicothe comes back, gets another possession quickly. Before you know it, the first quarter plays out early, second quarter there, you're looking at 14-0, and Julian Baker probably only carried the ball probably 3 times.
Mhm.
You probably hadn't had more than a handful of snaps in the whole game. So then in the second quarter, the game flips. So Partey Ligon had the big 40-yard run. Jeremy Kane made the outstanding catch down in the red zone. They're up 14-0. Now you come back to second quarter and the entire game flipped the other way. They got the run game going. Thought Phipps was outstanding with his ball handling. He was able to show the inside handoff to Baker, and he pulled it back a little bit. So he got involved in with his feet, a little bit of the option game with Enix. And then, of course, Baker's what makes it all go in between the
Mhm.
tackles. And before you know it, Miami Trace comes all the way back and they're up or they tied up at 14-14. So, you come into the second half and you're thinking, okay, it's anybody's game, and whoever could strike first, you felt like would really get the momentum. Well, Miami Trace does that in the third quarter, but then they missed the extra point, and
Mhm.
it was weird. They looked like they were rushing a guy on, and their kicker had plenty of leg. I was surprised they just didn't accept a little bit of the
Mhm.
yardage. But then they rushed it a little bit, and I'm not saying that had anything to do with the play, but nonetheless, they missed it.
Mhm.
So now here they are, 2016, and what I thought was going to be the play of the night was third and long for Chillicothe, the pass game, which now they ended up throwing it around a little bit. Kane
Mhm.
had a nice night. Williams had a nice night. They even got Pleasant involved a little bit, but they ended up using Carte Ligon out of the backfield there. They got him into the slot, ran a little route, and he had a huge catch on a third and long play when they're going to have to
Mhm.
punt the ball back. So imagine Miami Trace possessing the ball then late third quarter,
Right.
up 6. And instead, one play later, Partey Ligon 40-yard touchdown. They make the extra point, and Chillicothe's on top.
Mhm.
And you could just see it in Chillicothe's body language at that point. They were in position to take it. So now we've got Chillicothe up 21-20, and first down stop, second down stop, and it was almost a mirror image. That's what was so
Mhm.
crazy about this. Just how Carte Ligon was used in the receiving game. Now Julian Baker down the left side, I guess you call it like a little wheel route,
Mhm.
and really well thrown ball, 60 some yards down into the 3, and then they punch it in. They get the 2, so they get that point
Mhm.
back. We talked about chasing the point. I thought that was huge. And then Chillicothe with a fake punt. Look, I mean, a lot of people have picked on that call a little bit. I'll never pick on aggressiveness if you're trying to
Mhm.
win and do some different things. It didn't work. If it does work, then everyone's saying what a great call. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So as a coach myself, I respect the coach made a call and then you own it and you move on. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Nonetheless, it did give Miami Trace some nice field position. It got to third down, and I'll be honest, I was thinking, man, if you're Miami Trace here, do you just run it, kind of punt it deep and trust your defense? Well, they run basically the same play to the other side of the field. Really, really well thrown ball. Baker makes an outstanding catch, keeps the feet in bounds, and takes it on in, and that's where you get 35-21. But Yeah, don't let that two score game
Mhm.
confuse you there. That was an outstanding football game for 3.5 quarters, and just a lot of fun to be a part of.
Well, and you mentioned don't let it kind of deter you on how you look at that game because if you look at Miami Trace over Waverly in week one, it was a much closer game than the final score said.
No question.
Week three, Hillsborough over West was a much closer game than the final
Yeah.
score says. So don't always look at the final score when it comes down to those games. But man, Ligon and Baker, they're as advertised.
In every aspect, as runners, um, as receivers, as defensive players, as competitors.
Mhm,
So strong, so athletic. Both offensive lines were really, really impressive.
mhm.
Uh, Real impressed with their ability to block up front. Uh, I thought the Harris kid from Chillicothe throws a really good ball.
Yeah.
I think there's something that Chillicothe can grow on there. While obviously they're playing without their quarterback right now. They're starting quarterback in Hammond, and I thought he threw the ball real, real well. I was impressed with their ability to get Kane involved in space. But then remember, we talked last week on our underappreciated. And when you start talking about like a Dolls and you talk about an Enix and some of those kids, and I'd even throw the quarterback Phipps in there, yeah, you've got guys that could really make some plays there. I
Mhm.
thought they stepped to the forefront and did that at a much needed time, and that was a well earned game. Keep in mind, Chillicothe beat them a year ago, so it's homecoming night there at Miami Trace. What an incredible facility
Oh,
too.
it's
Place we talked
beautiful.
about that a couple weeks back. Everything in that place is just so well put together. It's so thought out. You can tell that there's nothing in that facility where they just said, "Oh, just put that up wherever you
Mhm.
want." No, no. It's like we'll be putting this here, and we'll be putting this here, and it's just I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to that kind of thing. I love that stuff. But you really appreciate it. Similar to how we talked about the Gallia Academy volleyball
Yeah.
thing. We were talking about some football stuff,
Mhm.
too. That was one of those football atmospheres. Really good football Friday night.
Well, I feel like even now, if you have a chance to build, you need to really do it right. Miami Trace a few years ago was able to build. Their gym's beautiful. Like
Beautiful.
everything in their gym is really well done. I mean, you've got it. At times it may be like too big, I guess, but you have the student section you can put behind the opposing basket, which is a great advantage that you have. You've got it's just a great setup. They've got a variety of scorers tables that you can use
Sure.
for like what we do. Like
Right.
we can get on the floor while they still have their own home people on the floor, and it's everything is well done at Miami Trace, and it's very impressive to go over there. Their school's growing, but they've done a good job of making sure their school can grow into that as well as um, instead of just hurrying things along or forgetting something, as you said, it's all well put together and it's a beautiful facility.
I think that's well said. I think there's always debate on do you build something that's a little too big? Do you build something that's a little too small? I would encourage people that are building to have or even remodeling or just taking care of the facility you have, be dynamic in your thinking. We're coming into a time of technology that's never been this way. We talked
Mhm,
about that last week on how much kids get covered nowadays.
mhm,
What's wrong with that? You know what I
right.
mean? Like it exposure for kids in a positive way. Do you have the technology? Are you prepared to welcome people in that want to promote your kids? And I think
Mm,
that's important. That's something I always try to take pride on in coaching of if they do want to come here, let's make sure they have what they need because they're coming here to promote our kids.
exactly. So, big time game for each of them coming up this week, both on the road, um, and really wins for both teams, and probably into the playoffs at that point. Chillicothe is at Washington Courthouse, who once again has that
Yeah.
really big win in their
Yeah.
back pocket of
Yeah.
Granville, which is
There's your computer points
yeah,
again.
that's a huge computer point one. And then another, fairly big computer point one because they went 4-1. Miami Trace at Hillsborough this week as well. Hillsborough seems to not be the same team as they were a few
Sure.
weeks ago, dealing with some adversity there, but still get some good points from there. And it's a tough place to play down at Hillsborough as well. So right now, both teams will have a excellent chance to get in the playoffs with a win this week, taking care of business. Both have Jackson down the line as well, but really, if Miami Trace can go into that Jackson game 8-0, regardless of what happens there, there's a chance that them and Jackson could both get a bye in what is an incredibly loaded region over there in region 12. So yeah, it should be an outstanding game when it comes up in week 9. We may be there. We'll see.
Yeah.
Um, but one more game. I didn't, or actually, before getting to that, there's actually two more games I want to talk about. But this week's Perfection One Collision of the Game, which is typically from our streaming game, will go to Miami Trace's Cooper Enix with a monster hit early in the second half that really helped set the tone for the Panthers as they turned a 14-14 game at the half into a 35-21 victory to stay unbeaten. 6-0 now are the Panthers. And remember that you can find Perfection One in Pickaway, Pike, and Ross counties. And if you ever have to use them, you will see why they are highly recommended. So,
Well, and the physicality that Miami Trace plays with, you mentioned how they pulled away from Waverly, they pulled away from Chillicothe. That physicality throughout the course of the game, they just kind of wear on you a little bit, man. And you can't convince me that that doesn't matter come third, fourth quarter. I think Miami
yeah.
Trace now, I tried to count them up earlier today. One of right around what, 8 or 9 undefeated still in our area.
Yeah, so they've been outstanding so far, and they've dealt with injuries throughout the year. They have a small roster especially for their size of the school. But if they can keep Baker, Enix, Phipps in the backfield, if they can keep all three of them healthy, along with Guthrie and that big offensive line, they're going to be in every game they play. So one of the big computer point games that we talked about, and it was more for the team that lost in that situation where the computer points end up being a big deal, was Valley with a 21-20 win at Northwest on Friday night. Valley was a significant favorite going into that game, but it's a rivalry game. The last 3 years combined have been decided by 5 points.
Yeah.
And
And with the kicking game
yeah,
pretty much at the end,
yeah,
right?
because 7-6 2 years ago. Last year was a Jalen Bender 46-yard field goal at the horn to win it there. So that gets you 4 points. And then an extra point with a little over a minute left by Bender gives them a 21-20 win. And then Northwest actually had a field goal attempt
Yeah.
at the buzzer and just missed it wide. But that's one of those games where maybe you don't think about it as much, but like Northwest, if they win that game and move to 4-2, this is partially where you need to use like things like joeidle.com, fantastic50.net, use these websites where you can look at different aspects for each team, how they have a chance for the playoffs. If they win that game, now they have a 1% chance to get in for Northwest. So pretty much it's gone. Now maybe if they beat West, if they beat West and get to 7 wins, they still have a slight chance. It's like a 3 to 4% chance at that point. But if they would have won against Valley, they end up with an excellent chance because Valley's going to win 7, 8 games. So you just those are the types of things you have to look at whenever you look long term on the computer points. Because for Northwest, it just comes down to that one kick, a couple plays here and there. They take a late lead, but then Valley goes down and scores and gets the big road win. So congrats to Valley on that. They moved to 5-1. Right now, if they can beat West this week, more than likely, Grandview Heights on the road is going to be really tough. But if they can beat West, more than likely an 8-2 season for them, which would get them into the playoffs, and they'd have a chance at a home game there, which is kind of something they've been building towards over the last few years.
Sure.
And really, if you look at it, if they win this next game, there's a decent to good chance they would play Zane Trace, which was a really good scrimmage right before the season started. So that
Very competitive game. Those
yeah,
two teams mirror each other in a lot of different ways.
yeah. So for Valley, a big time win for computer points and just big time win. But for Northwest, a heartbreaker because of the computer points going away from them as well, since you don't get them with a loss. But we've done this a couple different times. Our team of the week, we've We went with Wheelersburg last week. Not going to go back-to-back weeks. They'd have a good argument for this. There's a lot of teams that are unbeaten, as we said. One of them is the is are the Notre Dame Titans as they move to 6-0 with a 56-46 win over South Gallia. I'm just going to read off some stuff
All
for you
right.
here. Luke Cassidy of Notre Dame. By the way, not a quarterback to start the year. I think it was their second possession of the year. He stepped in and had to play quarterback, and he's led them to a 6-0 start. He scored 6 times, 4 of which were on the ground, 2 on kickoff returns. Then he also threw 2 touchdowns, one of which to Bryce McCraw and the other to Jackson Stombach. Also ran for 162 yards, was efficient in the passing game, just solid overall. But yeah, he accounted for all 8 of their touchdowns. And then,
So I was scoring along with you there. Those
yeah,
8.
so Luke Cassidy with, I would say, I don't vote on it. I would say it'd be one of our performances of the week. Just an outstanding performance of him. Coleman Schaefer, also the kicker for Notre Dame, appears to have made all 8 extra points. So that goes to, we talked about the underrated last week, the snap, the hold, and the kick. You got to do all 3 perfectly to get that extra point. And it sounds like Notre Dame was able to do so.
And what, a 10-point game?
A 10-point game,
That's
yeah.
8 points. Yeah.
Yeah, 8 points. But the stat of the game for me, and I'm just going to pull it up. Lane Wright from South Gallia scored a 54-yard touchdown run. Just 54 of his 318 yards on the night. 318 yards and 4 touchdowns. Hunter Wright had 2 touchdowns, 77 yards rushing. But Lane Wright's 54-yard touchdown run, as time ran out in the third quarter, that made it 49-46. Luke Cassidy scores 5.5 minutes later to go up 56-46. Teams score over 100 points combined, 102 points. 95 were scored in the first 3 quarters. What happened in the fourth?
Well, I mean, evidently defensive the defensive side of the ball figured it out. Maybe they
Yeah.
made some adjustments or whatever 100 points later. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, but I mean it's it's just one of those games. Listen, I mean, for you to be on the undefeated list, and I know sometimes football's different because bigger, faster, stronger. Sometimes you're just better. You're better.
Mhm.
But I've always felt like in any sport, John, for you to go undefeated, I mean, to be perfect,
Mhm.
you have to be able to win different ways.
Mhm.
I mean, I know we're gonna have fun with that score because
Right.
it's fun to look at or whatever, but like at some point in the year, you've got to be able to win the shootout. And some year, then you got to also be able to win, like River Valley did this last week, 3-0 or whatever. Like you just you have to be able to play in different style of games. You'll have the way you want to play, but chances are somewhere down the line you'll run into a team that even if they're not quite as good as you, they'll just get you. You'll see it in basketball a
Mhm.
lot. They'll just get you, and they'll grind it out on you, and they'll slow the game down or whatever. And if you're a team that's used to winning 80, 79 sometimes in a close game of basketball, can you also win 40, 39? And if the answer is yes, then I think that's where you take a step toward being perfect. You go from being really good to being perfect. There's another gap there for sure. And hats off to them for finding a way there to just outscore them.
Yeah, and it ends up being like a fun game to talk about, but
Yeah.
at the same time, for Notre Dame, that's a huge win. So both teams, like they're very even on the night because actually South Gallia outgained Notre
It's a
Dame,
lot.
but when you have 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns,
Right.
that'll do. Same amount of turnovers, same amount of first downs, same amount of punt yards, which was each punted once for 27 yards. But ultimately, that's we won't say that's going to be the week by week in the SOC one, but when we made sure to throw South Gallia in there, when they're coming in 4-1, you have Symmes Valley, Eastern Pike, and Notre Dame all 6-0. That South Gallia team at 4-2, you do not want to sleep on them because they can put up points. They can do it in a hurry, and that ultimately makes them a very competitive team. and it's going to give them a chance a lot of times down the stretch.
Well, like I said, when I was just trying to rattle off some of the undefeated teams, Wheelersburg, Unioto, Notre Dame, Eastern, Symmes Valley, Miami Trace, Athens, Nelsonville, you just named three of them right there. And
Mm.
it's just the small school football, especially if you're able to pick up a D5 win or a D6 win or whatever, the computer points just start to really rack up, and you can put yourself in a nice position to advance a couple weeks into the playoffs.
Yeah, it would be um, it's very tough every week in the SOC 1 because of what those teams can do.
Sure.
And for one of those teams, they got a really tough 3 week stretch coming up, which we're going to talk about in just a minute as one of our uh, games of the week. We have a game of the week this week that we're going to be streaming at. We'll talk about that. That'll be our last thing we'll talk about on football. But staying in SOC 1, Sims Valley at Eastern this week. We won't be streaming. I know we'll have someone there writing about it and covering that game. Um, you can view that. There's a couple different places where you can watch that. Just search for it on YouTube. You'll find it. Uh, you'll see it. There's a chance there's going to be a lot of points in this game. Sims Valley 6-0, very underclassmen heavy. Now Eastern Pike pretty underclassmen heavy, but a senior quarterback, a really good line that has a good number of seniors on it. But some of the big time weapons are underclassmen as well for Eastern. This game has a chance to just absolutely light up the scoreboard in Beaver, and it's going to be that's going to be one of the games to watch this week.
When you get into the small school football, what I found is when you start to get into those really, really unique. I even watched it, on a D3, D4 level there in the FAC with the Chillicothe, Miami Trace type of level with the two special athletes on
Mhm.
each side, Division 1 linemen up front. In the small school football, what I find, John, tell me if I'm wrong because you watch a lot of it, you don't have the depth of bigger, faster, stronger on the defensive side of the ball. So I know we're making fun of that
Yeah,
score there a little bit,
yeah,
but in all fairness to like some of these smaller rosters, you get some of these unique skill kids carrying the ball 25, 30 times a night. They're hard to get to the
yeah.
ground, or out in isolation defending the elite wide receiver with the elite quarterback buying
Mhm.
time. That's a hard matchup. So you get your best players to play their very best when their best is required. That's really, really on stage in a game like this.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest difference in from D6, D7
Sure.
up until D1, D2. Obviously, bigger schools probably have the bigger depth of athletes anyway, but it's the line play is a big thing there, and the fact that you don't have to use a lot of guys both ways can really benefit those schools because if you can get some of these guys just to focus only on one side, how much better are they going to be even? Because man, there's some guys that are just putting up just video game numbers on both these teams, and that's why they've gotten off to such great starts. For Sims Valley, Bronx Carpenter, a sophomore quarterback, does a really good job getting the ball to his different receivers, getting the ball in the hands of playmakers, but he also is a playmaker himself. Some of his playmakers include Jackson Fields, Levi Russell, Grady Holland, and then you got Asher Maynard who can really carry the ball, and and he's a big power runner as well. They average 47.7 points a game so far this year. They had one of those games where you mentioned it was a game at Meigs. They give up 42 points, but they score 56.
Yeah.
So I mean, they are a team that puts up a lot of points. They do have a defense that gives up some points.
Yeah.
So they have a shutout, which is against Chesapeake, but they give up 42 to Meigs, 42 to Meigs, 27 to River Valley, 24 to South Point, 12 to Fairfield Christian, and 12 to Green this past week. Now, against Green, most of those guys played a quarter, maybe a quarter and a half. So I mean, they're putting up a lot of points, getting to play their depth guys. But it's a big one this week because Eastern also puts up a ton of points.
Yeah.
39.6 points a game for them so far in the year. Their defense has been a lot tighter the last few weeks. Now they had a 48-42 win over Minford. They had a come from behind against Huntington, where they scored as time ran
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
In a game, they gave up 35 points. But also against South Point, they won 13-6. So, I mean, they've shown they can win in a variety of different ways. Last 3 weeks, they've given up 8, 6, and 8 points. So, I mean, they've really tightened up the defense, which is they're going to need to do this week because of what the Vikings can do. Now, for Eastern Pike, Eric Manley Jr., uh, dude just slings it. Like he's 6'5", 6'6", can throw it in a variety of different ways. He can move. Just an outstanding quarterback for the Eagles. Jack Montgomery is a very capable running back, but he can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. And then you got Boston Webb, Carson Peters, Trey Kelly as just some of the targets for Eastern. You got Brewer Tomlinson up front. Um, you got Lice up front of as well. You've got a variety of guys that can block and can give Manly some time. They're a very dynamic offense. I misspoke. 39.8 points a game, which I mean, 2/10 of a point is,
Yeah.
but you want to get it right. That's a game that should light up the scoreboard, should be really fun to watch, and really competitive in SEC
You,
play.
you talk about the special quarterback. If you go back to the final play of the Huntington game,
Mhm.
whatever it may be, or the Minford win, again, it's just having a special athlete who's going to touch it on every offensive play. I mean, you're snapping at them.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things he's going to draw so many eyeballs, and then he gives not only himself, but so many skilled kids around him a chance to make plays. That's that's just a tough assignment for a defensive coordinator to just try to get that under control.
Yeah, they've been very difficult to slow down for anyone, and then even more difficult to beat as they are currently on a 28
Yeah,
game
and that matters.
regular season winning
And
streak.
that matters because they're used to winning and teams are used to losing to them.
They have uh, when they've been a heavy favorite, they've been pretty dominating. Now this game, they're going to come in as a 1 point underdog on Fantastic 50.
Really?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
can see that. I mean, it's a
yeah,
coin flip game. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, it's a yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it really is. It's a coin flip game, and I guess that's it. In all seriousness, like we've been describing, it might come down to who has the ball on the final play of the game.
hmm Yeah, they currently have a 9-game home winning streak. Their last loss was to Waterford in the playoffs a couple of years ago. But, man, it's this one has all the makings to just be a really fun game
Yeah.
and, could be a high scoring but really fun, matchup as well. Looking forward to following along with that game as well as our, SOSA live stream game of the week, which is presented by Ohio Health. Zane Trace at Unioto, more or less SVC championship game. Unio would still have to beat Westfall in week 10, but this one has all the makings for a big time matchup in Frenchtown. We saw one 2 years ago where Unio
Yeah.
scored. I mean, one it was a walk off pick six by Caden Cartwright. He scored twice in the last 2 minutes to win that game. Last year's game was a dogfight. 3 years ago was a dogfight. Ask Kenneth Hay about that one on Friday. He'll tell you all about it
Yeah.
as he got the win in that one. So this one, man, should be a really fun one.
Well, it always is. I mean, and a lot of times with rivalry games, you talk about throwing records out the window, but here you don't even have to do that because they are so good. You know what I
Hmm
mean? I think I heard Coach Miller on the call show the other night talking about the same type of
hmm
thing, and that made a lot of sense to me because you know the record just adds to it. I think the point people make is Unioto and Zane Trace get together to play anything, it's going to matter.
hmm
Now all of a sudden you put all of the things that are at stake out there on a football Friday night, and you look at that atmosphere, and you look at the intensity and the physicality of that matchup, and you're going to have a really good one. I mean, look, you have skill kids all over the place on both sides of the ball. So, as always, it's going to matter a bunch up front. I'm intrigued by the matchup of the Zane Trace offensive line
hmm
versus the Unioto defensive line. I think it's one of Unioto's best defensive fronts I've seen.
hmm
The Zane Trace offensive line does a job, and they're going to come at you with multiple types of backs, and they're not going to really try to trick you. I mean, I still think they have more dynamic in their skill when needed. I know Coach was talking the other night on the call show about how they've got to put the ball
hmm
away. Obviously, that's not going to
Yeah.
fly if you start giving that Unioto offense extra possessions. But if they take care of the ball, I think that's the matchup I'm most intrigued by. Because for Zane Trace to be successful in this, they need to possess the football.
hmm
Well, how do you possess the football? You win in the trenches with your offensive line, and then you hold on to the ball. and you put together those 8, 9, 10 play drives. Now, if you hit the home run, great. But if not, can you consistently move the ball and try to keep Coy and that offense off the field?
Right, yeah, you wanna make in my opinion, you wanna make Unio to throw, and you wanna try to get after Coy, but when he's on the
You better be
move
careful what you wish for
yeah, when he's on
sometimes.
the move,
Yeah,
he's super accurate,
yeah,
but if you can try to force him up into the pocket, at least make things a little more difficult, but man, he's got some really good receivers, and that can really make them dynamic. Now, Zane Trace, much more run heavy, but we've seen Gunnar McCall throw in the past. He threw 2 touchdowns this past weekend, or I think he threw 1, I think Jaden Higgins threw 1. Um, both of which were Mason Hartley, and we saw on stream against Piketon, Hartley had a pick six, but you also had
yeah,
Grady Stewart had a pick six, but also a long touchdown. Jaden Higgins had a long touchdown, and that's all without mentioning Bryce Johnson. Bryce Johnson had
yeah.
28 carries last week. Didn't have the big home runs that he's had in the past, but man, you have that dude grinding away at
He just
you.
runs at
Yeah,
you like he's mad at you. I mean, he's physical. He finishes the run. Yeah, he's
and
good.
here's something that Unio has not had a remotely close game yet. They have
Yeah,
not played hardly at all in the second half.
yeah,
So if you're Zane Trace and you can grind at them, get a long touchdown run early, try to keep it close, the conditioning factor for Unio may come into play because, for Zane Trace, they haven't played a lot of close games either. But 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I guess it was a month ago now, Amanda Clear Creek, they lose that game, but they play 4 quarters there. Huntington was a 41-14 game, but it was a one-score
yeah,
game with 9 minutes left, and,
yeah,
they recover a fumble for a touchdown
yeah.
and return it. Ended up being a 27-point game, but last week was a Westfall game. It's a four-quarter game.
And
UDO
hats off to Westfall, by the way. I
yes.
know I don't want to get off the topic, but we've talked about them, and I thought Westfall really showed themselves to be a very competitive football team this past Friday night.
Yes, 100%. Like, that Westfall team is no longer a walkover. It's to me,
Yeah.
reminds me a good bit of what Westfall has
Yes,
been for a long
yes,
time, but for Unioto, their closest game was a 48-8 game
yeah,
in which I believe the last score of the game was the touchdown by
yeah.
Vinton County. So I mean they haven't had a remotely close game yet. And will that factor in if it comes down to the fourth quarter? And I think if you're Coach Hoops, how much do you actually want it to get to the fourth quarter? Because you want your guys to have to play because when it comes playoff time,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be the same thing. You gotta make sure you're ready to go each time.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Coach Hoops wouldn't mind being in total control of the game in the fourth
Yes.
quarter, but I think in terms of the chunk that a little bit in terms of what you're saying, how do you get Unio to the fourth quarter? Well, throughout the game, you possess the ball and you limit possessions.
Mm,
But then you mentioned something there, and I was thinking about my notes as I started to prepare because we're going to call this game this week.
mm,
I think the biggest thing with Coy is can you get Uniota into the obvious passing game?
yeah.
Uniota is so balanced that you try to cheat in and out of the box because their run game's so dynamic. So that when they do throw it, they not only have athleticism, but they have numbers in their advantage, if that makes
Mm,
sense. If you can get them into some obvious passing downs. I think we've learned in some of our stream games with Zane Trace and studying them on film,
mm,
they have some guys on that defensive line
yeah,
that can win,
yeah,
right? So I don't think they'll have to send the extra guys. They can rush with four, maybe
mhm,
five, and they can get after him a little bit and go. But I don't think they can do that consistently if Uniota's constantly staying in the proper down and distance because they're one of the more balanced teams in our entire listening area in terms of their ability to run and throw
mm.
it.
Yeah, and I think you don't want Koya on the run either, so if you're gonna rush him, you gotta contain
Yeah,
because if
they
you
run
if
in
you can
there. Yep.
contain, then it helps eliminate the, how creative he can be, but also how creative his wide receivers can be. Because Jackson Zickafoose is outstanding, one of the better two-way players in our area.
Yes.
He made a catch that didn't even count a couple weeks ago. That was just unbelievable. You've got Levi Beam that can really do a lot of things. Braden Harsha, a freshman,
Yes.
makes plays. David Long, if he gets the ball in space, like have fun tackling him. Like
Mhm.
that's a type of guy that can really do a lot of things. And then,
Well, they're so dynamic at running back too.
yeah, well, I was gonna get to that. Yeah, it's you have a variety of guys that can make plays in the passing game, but you also have to worry about Cody Braden, who is unreal. 15 rushing touchdowns already this season. He's been outstanding. And then last week they got Ty Woods back, who was their starting running back to start last year. Braden ends up scoring like 19 rushing touchdowns last year and wasn't the number one running back to start the year because Ty Woods was, and he's finally back and healthy. So what does that throw in there to give you another, that's what Coach Hoops needed was another weapon.
Well, and that's my point is when Unioto stays on script, they're near impossible to stop because they keep you off balance, and it's hard to stop the run without cheating into the box. It's hard to stop their wide receivers without having a little bit of help over the top. You see what I'm saying? So the only way you get there is get them into some more predictable play calling. As long as they're winning first down and so forth, they've already have shown just how much they can just blow you out. So look for Zane Trace in that. The only other thing I'll say too about Zane Trace is McCall at quarterback. You think about it over his career as an athlete, he's a winner. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like he's an athlete, he's a competitor. I've always had high level of respect for him. Obviously very, very talented, but even beyond the talent, even where there's certain things in his skill that you might critique just as a coach or whatever, you don't even care anymore because you're like, dang on, he plays hard.
Right.
Man, he's a winner. Man, he's a competitor. So I wouldn't want to be in the fourth quarter of a close game going against him
Right.
either. But if I'm Zane Trace, if we can get this game to the fourth quarter, I'm looking at it from that perspective as, hey, I like our chances. So that's going to be really, really interesting just to see is Unioto able to come out and continue to just score at the pace they have. Because if they can, then I just don't know that Zane Trace can play at that pace.
Right. And but for Zane Trace, it's without even mentioning yet Hudson Williams, Blake Brower,
Sure.
Lucas Euler, just outstanding defense player. Arthurs as another one that just guys that make plays on the defensive side. They got a lot of guys that are playing both ways as well. Now, Unioto has a few that are playing both ways, but it's going to be fun to see Bryce Johnson get to do the defensive side
Right.
in a game like this, and then just see him and Cody Braden have a chance to go at each other because they both are outstanding defensive players as well as outstanding running backs.
Well, you need a Brower, a Neuler type of guy to just be involved in everything defensively. You know, I mean, maybe it's pressuring the quarterback, maybe it's getting their size up there and knocking a ball down. You know, I mean, maybe it's just whatever it is, they need those guys to impact the game in multiple ways as defenders.
Yes, I agree completely. So, big rivalry game in Frenchtown. That'll be our stream of the week. Make sure you check that out here on YouTube, presented by Ohio Health, as always. So, yeah, should be a fun week. I don't know, I'll somewhere in Texas. I'll be somewhere in Texas. It's a suburb of Dallas, I believe. So, I'll be tuning in. So you guys have fun on that call, and I look forward to.
Should be a lot of
Yeah.
fun, just the atmosphere and so forth. If I'm going to clean out the notebook, the only other two things I have, John, Circleville, Miami Trace, both 5-1. I thought that was worth mention. And then I'll tell you, this was a sneaky thing in my research here. Rock Hill, number one in D6 in the Region 24. I know they lost a team in Kentucky now, but they're a one-loss team. They play week 10. I looked ahead. Coldgrove, Dawson Bryan, who's D5 Region 19. They're the number 12 team in that right there. They'll be at Rock Hill, so that'll be one in week 10 on the theme of tonight's show. In terms of league championships down the stretch and computer points, that'll be crazy because that D5 Region 19, you're talking Berg, Ironton, Nelsonville, York, Zane Trace, Amanda, Valley, not to mention teams out of our area like Bardsville, Columbus Academy, Harvest Prep, Union Local, and then even Portsmouth in the Northwest. So, like, someone's not getting in, right? You know what I mean? Like, so that's got some incredible depth. So I can't wait to see some of these head-to-head matchups down the stretch there.
So you want me to get into the Rock Hill conversation?
Well, I
again?
heard it the other night. It depends on, no coach to bail us out here tonight. So I'll just apologize in advance if this gets off the track.
Yeah, just look up iShow Speed Royal Rumble. That's all you got to do. They Rock Hill beat Purcell Marion. It's one of the funniest things you'll ever see if you like watching people get hit really hard. But yeah, it was Rock Hill, big time win for them, as you mentioned.
It was.
I did not realize until you said it that they were at the top of Region 24. So outstanding there, as that is a region that is extremely talented as well. So anytime you're in a region with Coldwater and Mechanicsburg, that's gonna be some fun there. So um, look forward to getting more in depth on football as we go through. But man, this should be a really fun week 7 coming up,
Oh, I think so.
and really everything I've heard about Rock Hill, that might be the place in week 10.
They could be,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
with what's going to be on the line there. So we'll keep an eye on that. But I thought that that was crazy for us to try to get through a show and not at least throw that out there and mention. So that clears my football notebook. Anything else before we move on to soccer?
No, that's all we got. So yeah, keep an eye on Colgrove and Rock Hill moving forward into a
Yeah,
possibility of week 10.
yeah. Well, on the soccer side, I always try to put together a couple of notes. Obviously, soccer, John's our big analyst here, and we kind of look forward each week to hearing from him and John in my notes there to try to start throwing some topics at you. I know you've been high on the Fayetteville group, really on the boys and girls side. I know they had the unique schedule where they get
Yes.
all the time off, and that's why, in fairness to them, we've recognized how good they are. But because they were off, we've kind of bumped them
Mhm,
back a week. So I wanted to make sure we started soccer this week with them to make sure we give them the due
mhm.
that's deserving. Talk to us a little bit on that Fayetteville side. Let's start on the boys side.
To be fair, we did talk about them on last week's overtime, the lost episode, but not the live episode. Not the
Right.
when we made our adjustments from the lost episode
Yes.
on Monday to the live episode
Yeah.
on Wednesday.
Like the Notre Dame South Gallia defense, we had to
Yes,
adjust.
so it was kind of we were gonna go shorter, we didn't go shorter,
Yeah.
and we even, like, cut out some things, but it was like, as we're doing the show last week, I'm, like, looking through, I'm like, "Man, they don't play for, like, 12 days."
Yeah,
Well, that's
that's
perfect
was
to
all.
talk about next week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Fayetteville on the boys' side, 12-0-1.
Wow.
They've been outstanding. I even have a note in here that they're off for 12 days. I can probably take that out.
Okay.
But Ryder Lunkin, their leader, 18 goals. Now, a lot of seniors on this team. The goalie, Blake Rugenstein, 6 shutouts on the season. He's got or only given up 7 goals in their 12 matches. Keegan Craycraft, 9 goals, 8 assists. And Tyler Short, another senior, 12 assists on the season. Very senior heavy, but Levi Espinosa, a freshman, 11 goals, 7 assists on the season. They have a fairly unique schedule for this week. As we mentioned, they're off for 12 days, um, but then it gets like not easy at all whenever you look at their schedule because they take care of New Richmond, who's a nice team out of the Southern Buckeye, to move to 12-0-1, and then they play Cincinnati Country Day on Tuesday, which is no joke at all. The Nighthawks, one of the better mascots.
Uh-huh.
I wish I could remember what the old one was. It was definitely like they adjusted it, but they went with the Nighthawks. So I like Nighthawks. Like, Anderson went from something to the Raptors. Like, he went to the Raptors? The Raptors aren't real. And
Like,
and
it's their mascot.
although I'm not sure if Nighthawks are real either, so, and then they got the Cincinnati Flames as their next game, before Ripley at Miami Trace and then at Lynchburg to finish the season. So, gonna be a tough, finish to the season for Fayetteville, but they've been outstanding so far on the boys' side, but also on the girls' side as well, as they are 8-3-1 on the girls' side. They have the same schedule for this week. They got Cincinnati Country Day, who SHAC fans know from what they've been able to do against Lynchburg the last couple times. They've met deep in the tournament, once in the state semifinal, once in the Elite Eight. An outstanding team there, outstanding program. And then they've got the Cincinnati Flames. Same schedule coming up for the Fayetteville girls, but 8-3-1. They are led by Lily Carler with 13 goals on the season. Uh, Ella Wolfer, a sophomore, 7 assists, 6 assists for Kara Rummel, and then 6 goals, 6 assists for Aubrey Barber. They are sitting in first place right now in the SHAC. They will finish with Lynchburg, as we said.
Yeah.
That's going to be the last game of the regular season, so it's going to be after the tournament draw.
Tournament draw next Sunday.
Yes, tournament draw next Sunday, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But they've got Ripley coming up, which they should take care of. Ripley 1-8, and then they will finish regular season play at Lynchburg. That will be a chance to be the first team to beat Lynchburg in league play and forever. I think it was like 2010. I know we talked about it earlier, but they've still got North Adams and at Fairfield. That's one to look for on the girls' side because Fairfield has had a nice season. They've lost their last couple, but they beat a really good Wheelersburg team last week. Which when I watched that Wheelersburg team, like I couldn't believe they gave up 6 goals to anybody. And Fairfield went down there, beat them on a Saturday, scoring 6 goals against them. Tough week this past week playing Unioto and Alexander, but they've got a chance to get right coming up before they finish at McClain and Lynchburg. That's a heck of a last week too
Oh, no
for them
question.
next week
Yeah.
for Fairfield. So the SHAC's still wide open on the girls' side. The boys' side still wide open as well. But North Adams, even since they lost to Fayetteville already, is going to need some help from Lynchburg to finish the regular season there to be able to get a share of that SHAC championship.
With the draw coming up, let's look at it from this perspective here over these next 5, 6 days. Then, what are some of the huge matchups that we need to take a look at? Do you think is going to impact the seeding and therefore the bracket the most here in this next week?
Now, if you don't know how it works, Tuesday, Wednesday, it things open up
Yeah.
for hate it. I talked to Wheelersburg's coach about this.
It's 2025. Our
Yeah.
technology, like we don't have to do things like a week early. Like we can get online like Saturday night and let all the things
Well,
go. If not at the end of the year, period.
yes. For us not doing it at the end of the year to me is crazy because
I
like
agree
yeah,
completely.
because
I feel that way in all sports.
yeah, because a lot of people I know people that aren't even going out and scouting anyway. So you're gonna get film on people anyway. So
Yeah.
just get your film and do your scouting that way.
Right.
But uh Tuesday and Wednesday you can update your resume online. You cannot update after Wednesday at 11:59 PM.
Yeah.
So whatever your record says it is at that point is what it says at that point. Then voting, this is so wild to me. Voting is open Thursday and Friday. It closes Friday night at 11:59. So then Saturday games don't matter because
Even if coaches wanted to, like on Thursday and Friday, they could be like, "Well, so and so beat so and so Thursday night. I'm
yeah,
going to vote this way." But it's like that in every sport,
yeah.
and it's really outdated and it's kind of silly. You know?
Well, I don't know what's silly about the fact that you're putting your votes into a computer, the computer tabulates it in seconds, and then it spits out,
Yeah.
and then you don't know until 3:30 on Sunday. I don't know what's silly about that at all. But like, why does Saturday not matter? If it only takes a few seconds in the computer, you have till 11:59 on Saturday. If you just do it that way, I'm okay with it.
That's better. I mean,
Yeah,
that's why I say, like, I think it should be all the way to the extreme. But if you tell
yeah,
me that, I'd be like, okay, well, at least that's them trying to make it better.
yeah.
Yes.
Um, so you have some big matches throughout this week, as well, but maybe the biggest on the girls' side, um, man, Tuesday, you've got Miami Trace 10-1 at McClain, who's 10-2,
Yeah.
FAC championship game. Miami Trace gets a win, they're FAC champions. McClain can get a draw or a win. McClain's FAC champions. So it comes down to this match. We talked about it a little bit last week. Miami Trace really put it on Jackson on Tuesday, and then McClain, bad officiating. I I'm just gonna say it. I was watching it. I watched it back. I watched it. There was a cross that the goalie saved, and then a putback. The girl from McLean was never offsides at any point, and they called her offsides and took a goal off the board with like 6 minutes left in the game. They should have went ahead. Um, Maybe I'm misunderstanding rules, but that was kind of what it always was, on the offside positioning, but, ends up being a draw down at Jackson, so Miami Trace has to feel pretty good going into this match. They got a draw at home, but they beat Jackson 5-0. McClain ties Jackson, 1-1, so that's gonna be a big time matchup. Now, they go to uh, different divisions, so
Okay.
McClain is Division 4. It's a big time matchup for them because if I just pull it up, Division 4 does get 2 teams out. Let me make sure I'm on the, yeah, I thought I was on the girls' side. Just wanna make sure.
Yep.
Because there's a couple that are different. Division 4 gets 2 teams out, but Alexander, very good, Wheelersburg, very good. If you can
It's a
av
good list.
Yeah, if you can get a win here, move to 11, 1 and 2 going into your, on your resume, you've taken care of business, and you're probably only gonna have to beat one of those really good teams to get out. Because Circleville is gonna be strong. Hillsboro is you're not gonna wanna play Hillsboro if you're,
Right.
a 3rd time there. Um,
Now, what about on that D4 side for McClain then? Who are we looking at there that's some of the elite teams?
Alexander Wheelersburg, I think.
And then that's the Unioto one too?
Uh, that's on the boys' side.
Okay.
On the boys' side, Unioto
Oh,
is
because
D4.
that's right. Well, for
Yeah,
people who don't know, the girls' enrollment, we've learned that over the last
yeah.
year too. The girls' enrollment at Unioto right now, for whatever reasons,
Just huge in
nuts.
comparison. Yeah, like
Yep. That's right.
it is very lopsided on that. So, but for Miami Trace, if they can get this win, get to 11 wins, I mean, you still have like it is just it's a
Yeah.
absolutely loaded
Yeah.
Division 3 with one team getting out. So you've got Athens, Fairfield Union, Jackson, who's good, Marietta's always good. Then you got Miami Trace, Warren, and then Unionto in there. I just named 7 of the 10 teams.
One thing.
One team gets out.
Wow.
So have fun there.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good district. You have teams that are very good at different things, but that one's going to be a big time matchup because if you're Miami Trace, if you can get into like that 4 or 5 and give yourself slightly easier way to get to the district semifinal,
Sure.
then you're at least like, okay, well, yeah, we got to beat the number 1 team. But if you fall to the 3 through 6, the 3-6 matchup, then you're going to have to beat the 3, the 2, and then the 1 to get out
Yeah.
instead of, a team you're probably even with in the 4 or 5, and then you beat the 1 and probably 2. So then you slightly easier, I guess. It's none of it's easy in Division 3. So Division 5, just kind of looking ahead on that. Um, for the most part, that's going to be, I think it's pretty wide open because you've got the Menford girls, Valley girls that are strong. Lynchburg's always strong. Fairfield, Eastern Brown, just some of the teams, and that's 5 out of that group. North Adams even beat Unioto
Yeah.
last
Well,
week.
you talked
So
about that on the preview
yeah,
show. Yeah.
so but that's 13 teams, 1 district champion. So I mean, it's going to be really tough in Division 5 and Division 3. So any wins you get this week that can help your resume are a big deal on the girls' side. So look for some of those results throughout the week coming in. Should be really interesting on that side as far as the girls. Now for the boys, Thursday has a couple of huge matchups. You got Gallia Academy at Athens and then Alexander at South Webster. Both of those are on Thursday. Those are big time matchups that can really help in the seeding. Now, like we said, you can't update your resume, but if Alexander goes to South Webster and beats an undefeated South Webster, you have to think that the D4 coaches, it's going
Just
to
will
open.
recognize. You
Yeah,
hope so, but I mean, it doesn't always work that way. But it's the flaw in the system, as we said. You hope that the coaches recognize that.
yeah. So it's very wide open. I had it pulled up. It's Division 4 is the one side where it's gettable to me. Now Division 5, because they have more teams, they do have 2 district champions. I'll talk about Division 3 because it's a gauntlet. But in Division 4, you have 15 schools, so you have 2 division or district champions. Wheelersburg's going to be the one. They're undefeated, and they've taken care of business. They easily, I won't say easily, won the district last year. They beat Zane Trace 2-0, but they end up winning. They get to the regional final. You have the best goal scorer, the best goalie on the same side. You're undefeated. You're going to be the one. So that's Wheelersburg. More than likely, they're going to get a little easier run to a district final. There's a lot of teams, but there's not a ton of depth in the Division 4. But Alexander Unioto, they've met in the tournament for years. Looks like it's probably going to be them in that 2-3 spot. Now Unioto's going to come in with not a very good record, and because of that, they may end up dropping down in the seeding a little bit, even though a lot of that is because of schedule strength. Now they tied Wheelersburg and beat Alexander, so I mean, besides that, they've taken care of business against the rest of the Division 4 teams they
Some of
played.
those sometimes that makes for real I like to use
Yeah.
the word dangerous opponent
Mm.
when you've played that type of schedule and the better seed doesn't love seeing you in their
Right.
tournament.
Yeah, so they could have the away uniforms on for a while,
Yeah.
coming out of a lower seed, but, yeah, they should be one of the better teams in it. They played, Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy, scored the most goals against Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy that anyone has this year, lost 3-2 on Saturday, but seems like they're getting their footing right, at the right time of the season for them. Now, if we look at a couple of the other I'll go to Division 5 first. Um, man, it's loaded. We talked about North Adams and Valley last week. They tie 2-2 on Thursday, so pretty much what do you expect out of those two. Both teams are going to come in with one loss. Ironton St. Joseph lost to Valley 1-0. They'll come in, I think, with 3 losses. They've been a very good team throughout the year. Eastern Brown is strong. Lynchburg is strong. Just ignore the Lynchburg and Wheelersburg result from Saturday. Those things happen. Really impressed with what Wheelersburg was able to do in that one. That was when I really watched. I was like, "Oh, this is Wheelersburg." That was what you expect out of them. South Webster is going to be the one there. They're undefeated. They have the one tie with um, with Wheelersburg, but South Webster just loaded. If you can get North Adams and Valley in a district championship game, man, that'll be a really fun one. But I do think South Webster is not going to love seeing any of Ironton St. Joseph, Eastern Brown, or Lynchburg in a district final. Thankfully for our area, 2 teams get out in Division 5.
Yeah.
They'll meet in the regional semifinal, and then you know the winner will have a one game against the East with a chance to get
So
out
we're gonna put someone in the
at least in the regional
regional
final.
championship.
Yeah, in Division 4 and 5, we'll have someone in the regional championship. So I think as of now, my thinking is Wheelersburg, South Webster are those teams. But a North Adams getting there wouldn't surprise me. A Valley getting there wouldn't surprise me, and then maybe an Alexander Unioto wouldn't surprise me. But Division 3 is insane. You've got 11 teams will get out. I'm going to mention a couple teams that are not um, in our coverage area, but 11 teams, one district champion. Last year, Chillicothe got to a shootout before they fell in the regional final, which is the furthest that they had ever gotten before, or the closest they've ever gotten before. They've gotten to another regional final, but never got to the shootout era of it. Um, Athens, Fairfield Union, Gallia Academy, Jackson, Marietta, Warren. Those 6 teams are all teams that I could see playing in a regional championship, and 2 of them aren't even gonna get to the district semis. Like, that's just insane to me how deep, um, the 11-team district is in Division 3. You've got a Circleville's got 7 wins. Hillsboro's been solid. Miami Trace has been solid. I think Miami Trace has 7 wins. I mean, those are teams I'm not even mentioning. Like, that's how deep Division 3
Right.
is. It's gonna be an absolute gauntlet for someone to get out. So that's where the 1 seed there is very important because maybe you can get an easy one. An easy one because you're not getting an easy second one. Should be outstanding. Those dates are going to be, October 21st at Logan for those district semifinals are going to be must-watch games in Division 3. Should be an outstanding night. Now we'll talk about that more once it gets closer.
Yeah.
But keep an eye out on those. Those will come out next Sunday. We'll talk about those on next week's overtime.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So now we're going to jump to you, Shane.
All right.
Yeah, we're going to talk volleyball here. Getting deep in the conference play. I believe this week is also tournament draw, right? For volleyball, I
Should
believe
be.
so.
Should
Yeah.
be on the soccer, volleyball should be the same all the time.
Now, one league where we got out and saw it on Thursday. Now we had some technical difficulties at the end of that. That stream will go up probably Monday night, just as a standalone in our videos section. The recording which will have the full fourth set, which didn't.
And even then,
Yeah.
I think it had all the way up to like midway through that.
Yeah.
It was kind of starting to pull away a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was starting to pull away, but Circleville looked really good. Circleville had a great week. Mid-state league, what can you tell us about how that conference is shaping up?
Well, obviously Circleville shook everything up before we even got to that stream game, the big win over Bloom-Carroll and 5. And so Bloom-Carroll's first loss of the year. Bloom-Carroll plays out of Division 3. They're a top 2 or 3 team in the state all year long there, and Circleville knocked them off because Circleville has 5 losses, but now they're the 7-2 there. So when they were able to beat Logan Elm and hand them that second league loss, now you've got Circleville and Logan Elm with 2 losses, Bloom-Carroll with the 1. Logan Elm will get one more chance at Bloom-Carroll. See if Bloom-Carroll wins it outright or maybe even a 3-way tie. But the biggest note here, I said this the other night as a huge compliment to Circleville. In no way was it a knock on Logan Elm because that'd be silly because Logan Elm's really good.
Yeah.
But Logan Elm has 9 seniors. Logan Elm comes into the year. When I watched them on opening night, I had a pretty good idea who they were, and that's who they've been all year long, and they've been pretty good. But so like I never worried about Logan Elm's floor being that low. That it's a pretty high floor in terms of who they're going to be. Um, and then when they play well, there's a little another level they can go to. Circleville's an interesting group to look at. They were kind of finding themselves early in the year. They had maybe some injuries they were playing through, whatever, but man, when they hit their stride, when they don't serve it or serve receive it very well, their floor can get a little low. But when they play, when they are on with their size at the net, and Allie Thornsley at 5'10" is so good at the center position. I mean, really good. They have a whole nother level they can go to. I think they're an extremely dangerous because you highlight it, and we'll highlight it more next week on the tournament. I'm going to stay more to the conferences right now, but like that's going to be an incredible Division 4 field, and out of the Mid State League, obviously highlighted by Circleville and Logan Elm. But keep in mind, Circleville, their size with Thornsley at 5'10", and as I said before, both Edgingtons go up around 6'2", 5'11", and then not to mention Mallory McConnell or a Blakeman or a Fleck, they even go up around 5'7", 5'8", 5'9". Where on the Logan Elm side, after Claire King, they're very talented, but they're giving up 2, 3, 4 inches at the net in a lot of those rotations, and I thought that really impacted the match the other night. But yeah, when Circleville plays at their level, they've got a whole nother level they can go to. They're going to be tough. Now, don't count out Logan Elmo because again, they're experienced. They know who they are, and when they execute well and they can survive a couple of those rotations, they'll be fine. So again, it comes down to Logan Elm, Bloom-Carroll. Circleville needs some help there. Bloom-Carroll wins that one. It looks like they'll go on to win the outright title.
Yeah, that's been an outstanding league throughout, and you mentioned the size of Circleville. Just
Yeah.
sitting down in the gym, just seeing them in comparison to Logan Elm, it was like, man, this is a very good size athletic team. Yeah, I was really impressed with what they're able to do, and that's the second time I've seen Logan Elm this year, and they always impress me with what they're able to do.
Circleville struggles a little bit with their service game sometimes. They have a lot of risk reward. Sometimes they can really lose their efficiency. That happened to them in the second set the other night. But when they serve it well, and then what Thornsley does too at 5'10", she protects the passers a lot because how many times, I know you were right there on that perfect camera angle the other night, how many times was she able to just go up and stay out of the net, jump set a ball, put a ball out in front, and then Edgington had a huge night, and then Hoskin opposite of her did as well. And I thought their 1-2 punch as well as their depth up and down the net ended up being the difference in that.
Yeah, it was an outstanding match. Speaking of outstanding matches, now we haven't seen them again, but Gallia Academy, they've been outstanding throughout the year. I know they're in front in the OVC, but what can you tell us about the Ohio Valley Conference right now?
Ohio Valley Conference, certainly, Gallia Academy is an incredible story in our viewing area this year. By the time this comes out, they'll be, knocking on the door of 17-0 most likely, and then they'll have a stretch run as they chase perfection down the stretch here. Give Chesapeake credit. Chesapeake 15-3, 9-1. It'll be Chesapeake at Gallia Academy. I know we're balancing so many different things. That's on 10-7. We're still kind of waiting to hear from the powers to
Yeah.
be on if we're going to do some soccer. We're going to try to stay volleyball. If we do volleyball, which one will it be? There's a
Mhm.
lot
Yeah.
going on there, but nonetheless, we will follow it, talk about it, and cover it in some way. But that'll be on 10-7. Chesapeake is at Gallia Academy. South Point is 11-6, 7-3 in that conference. Chesapeake and South Point will go the Division 5 route. Gallia Academy will go to that loaded D4 that I'll talk more about next. Because you were talking about soccer, I
Yeah.
was thinking, well, that's the same thing as volleyball.
Mhm.
D4 just insane. Yeah, Gallia Academy, we've talked a lot about them and their personnel over the last couple years, or excuse me, the last couple weeks from last year to this year, and they're really good. And we'll see if they can stay focused and continue to go. I know some people be like, well, maybe you should lose one before the turn. I don't know if I ever bought
No.
that. And I know it can refocus kids sometimes, but like to me, you want that bullseye. You
Yes.
wanna, you know, that's who you are. You want that perfection. You want to chase it.
Yeah, as someone who had an undefeated regular season, but it was in soccer, we did have one tie. That tie did kind of refocus us. I still would have liked to have not
I'm
had
not
it.
saying it doesn't focus you.
Yeah.
The coach in me gets it
Yeah.
that it refocuses you, or it does take the pressure off. The way I look at it is, come postseason, if you're undefeated or not, the pressure is if you lose, you're done. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, so once you get to the postseason, everybody's got pressure.
Right. Yeah, it should be, one and done time. You should
Yeah,
know, "Hey, this could be it."
sure.
So, going to kind of I know it is an upset because of, the streak, but, had some big, moments this week in the FAC.
Well, we did. Obviously, the Chillicothe win over Miami Trace was big time, ending the incredible streak that Miami Trace has had, and I think that's probably why people might use the upset or whatever.
Mhm,
Coming into the year, I think a lot of people felt like Chillicothe was right there with them. Chillicothe got off to a tough start, but they lost some tough 5-set matches and some different things early, and maybe the overall record wasn't what it was. But now all of a sudden, you look and you win 6 straight. You beat Athens there on Saturday, I believe it was, and obviously led by the incredible play in the middle there from Hammond. And now all of a sudden you look up, they're 11-6 in that Division 3 bracket. They're going to become a dangerous opponent. So um, Miami Trace tied at 7-1, Jackson at 5-3, Hillsborough has fallen all the way back to 3-5. Keep in mind they lost to Miami Trace in 4
mhm,
and 5. That's how close they are. We had them in
mhm.
a stream earlier this year. So it looks like it's going to be a two-team race. If they avoid the upsets from here on out, it looks like we're on pace to share that FAC title. But again, down the stretch, league play, you never know. There's been some teams force those two teams to four and 5 sets. So that's something to keep an eye on to see if they can finish it off.
Yeah, that Division 3 is gonna be wild. There's only 6 teams, and I'm not sure if any of them aren't capable
Yeah.
of making
Well,
it
and
all the way.
I made the comment that they're good, but I'd almost rather be 3 than 4.
Yes, I would agree with that as well. So, uh, we've got a couple different divisions in this next conference, but the SOC, what can you tell us about the Southern Ohio Conference?
Yeah, let's break it down 1, 2, 3. In the SOC one, Notre Dame on top, 14-3, 6-0 overall. They're 2 in front. They play South Webster, just a key matchup,
Mm,
not a league match there in terms of the same division, but like uh, South Webster on Monday would be a big Division
mm,
7 matchup for Notre Dame there, or South Webster D6. Um, so that'll be a nice one to push Notre Dame a little bit. In Division 2, Eastern 13-4, 5-1. They are they're right up there. Oak Hill, Northwest, and Western are all one back in the loss
mm,
column. So that's got an exciting finish. That's weird because if once they go to the tournament, John, Eastern's D6, Oak Hill D5, Northwest D5, and Western D7. So you got a lot of clarity there.
mm,
Eastern will host Western on Tuesday and
mm,
Oak Hill next Tuesday. So obviously they're going to have the opportunity to take care of business there and put this thing
mm.
away. But at the same time, other teams get a
Right.
chance to stick their nose in it, maybe make it as much as a 14 race.
Mhm. Yeah.
Then on the Division 3, surprise, surprise, the number 2 team in the state, Wheelersburg, we just had them on stream 13-3, 6-0. They'll play their tournament out of the D5 bracket. But as we watched in that Valley match, just the overall match there, just really, really good. They're up 2 on Waverly, 3 clear of Valley and South Webster. Waverly is now 14-3.
Mhm.
They host Berg Tuesday. Um, it's going to be tough to catch Wheelersburg in the conference, but what a great opportunity for Waverly as a measuring stick because they're in that D4 bracket.
Mhm.
That's insane. But this gives them an opportunity to play an opponent that they're going to have to go toe to toe with to have any tournament
Mhm.
success beyond the first round. And I think that's interesting. So Valley D6, South Webster D6 in that whole mess. But Wheelersburg probably in the driver's seat league wise, but let's pay attention to that Tuesday matchup there with Berg and Waverly.
Yeah, Waverly, you mentioned 14-3, and that's how good that Division 4 is. Where it's like, man, they've got to step up in this one to show that they are capable because of how deep Division 4 is in the girls' side.
Well, it is because you got Gallia, Circleville, Logan, Elm, Warren, then you throw in, Waverly and so forth. It's really going to become a matchup thing. Kind of like
Mhm.
what I was talking about with Circleville, Logan, Elm. Circleville's a very difficult matchup for Logan Elm because of their depth of size. It'll be that type of thing as you get into the bracket. Like, okay, we match up better with them. That's a terrible matchup for
Mhm.
us, and that'll be interesting. We'll break that down next week.
Yeah, it should be fun to talk about. Now, on the SVC side, we saw Adena fell for the first time on Saturday. But can you tell us a little bit about the SVC, including our streaming game of the week this week?
Yeah, well, first of all, with Adena, they did lose to Shekinah Christian. Adena had been number one in the state there, and they fall to 17-1 or 10-0 in the conference, so they're 4 shy of a gold ball. And Shekinah Christian is a 14-3 D7 team, and obviously very very good. You'll hear that name again come tournament time because they're going to be
Mhm.
really difficult, a difficult out in that D7 bracket. But yeah, if you're Adena, you've got Huntington, Paint Valley, Piketon, Southeastern. You're now 2 clear of Unioto and 3 of Zane Trace. Um, Now we come up on Thursday night. We're looking forward to calling the Unioto Zane Trace
Mhm.
match. That's a really intriguing match. The question I get a lot, John, is like about matchups again. How is it that Zane Trace pushes Adena to 4 and almost 5, but Unioto really whooped them the first time?
Mhm.
To me, as I study the teams, it's a lot of matchups of where we talked about where Adena has a rotation or two where if you have great depth in the front row, you might be able to attack them a little bit. Where if you think about it, Zane Trace might have that in that matchup, but Zane Trace doesn't really have that when it comes to their depth versus Uniota's depth. It's just not there.
Yeah.
Uniota's just got the third, fourth, fifth hitter, and the way Batson spreads it around to him, and Stanley leading an improved
Mhm.
passing attack. That's going to be the matchup to watch. There is can Zane Trace get their top hitters going and offset some of that depth
Mhm.
of Unioto, maybe serve it tough at him and try to challenge them a little bit. But I've been impressed how Unioto's passed the volleyball here in recent weeks. So Unioto will eventually go into the D3 bracket. Adena, Zane Trace, let me think who else there. Piketon, Westfall, Zane Trace, Huntington are all in that D5. Paint Valley is D6.
Mhm.
So that'll be something to watch too, because uh, it just seems like the SVC as they get into separate brackets are always a tough
Mhm.
outs. But look for us Thursday night. I think we talked about it in football. So we're going to have Unioto, Zane
Mhm.
Trace on Thursday night in volleyball, and then on Friday night in football. It should be a really good 48 hours just to kind of highlight that rivalry and two sports where both teams are really good.
Yeah, it's a big time rivalry. Should be really fun. That's one that we've seen Zane Trace earlier this year. Seen you a couple times as well. Should be a outstanding match on Thursday for sure. So, moving to the east a little bit now, we go to the Dry Valley Conference.
Tri Valley Conference for a lot of listeners, if you're not aware, they divide that up into Ohio and Hocking. Ohio is
Mm.
a little bit of the bigger schools, Hocking some of the smaller schools. In that Ohio, you've got Alexander on top, 15-3. I talked about them, I think
Mhm.
it was 2 or 3 weeks back. 15-3 overall, 8-1 inside the TVC. They're at Athens on 10-7. Athens is also tied with them in the loss column at 1 loss. Now Athens will be at Nelsonville on Monday. That'll be huge. So can Athens keep pace with Alexander, or can Nelsonville kind of knock them off? Because Nelsonville's at the 3 losses now. Vinton County at 4-5, but keep in mind it was Vinton County who knocked Alexander off in
Mhm.
5. So they're very, very capable there as well. So if you're Alexander, you're trying to keep serve and beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Let Nelsonville and Athens beat up on each other. I'm sure the Spartans would like to see the Buckeyes knock off the Bulldogs,
Mhm.
right, and give them that 1 game cushion. That would almost, I don't want to say guarantee, but all but guarantee them at least at minimum welcoming Vinton County at the very
Mhm.
end of the chance to at least tie. But certainly outright still the goal. Athens on 10-7. That's an
Mhm.
away game for Alexander. Vinton County on 10-9 would be a home game. That'd be the final regular season match. Again, another possibility, depending on what's on the line there, for us to get down and
Mhm.
take our first look at the TVC in a stream. That would be fun.
Yeah.
And look, then come tournament time, they're all over the
Yeah.
place. That's what makes that conference fun too. Benton County's in that Division 4, Nelsonville Division 6, Athens all the way up to Division 3, Alexander in that Division 5. So I mean, the TVC Ohio, it's all over the place. It's got some SVC flavor
Mhm.
to it in that way. Over on the hockey side, Eastern Reedsville or Eastern Meigs, whatever you want to call them there, Racine Southern. They're the two teams to beat. They're both Division 7 schools. In league play, Eastern actually beat Southern, so Eastern is one up, and then see Eastern overall 14-3. Southern, that was their only loss. So I think they're
Mhm.
still 14-1. You got to go all the way down to Trimble at 4-3. They're under 500 in overall, but they are D7, so you never know come
Mhm.
tournament time. But here's the big one there. Here's another one that again we can't get everywhere, but we'll try to cover and talk about all of them. Eastern at Southern on 10-9. So the same
Mhm.
night Alexander and Vinton County will play at the end of the
Mhm.
Ohio season. The hockey side, Eastern at Southern. Have you ever been down to Southern?
I have not.
That'll be quite an
Yeah.
atmosphere on that night. I promise you that. On 10-9, that's a Thursday night at the very end of the regular
Mhm.
season.
Yeah, and here's just a small thing before we get to our before we go out west.
Sure.
Um, like what's the deal with where our districts are set? Like almost the entire Division 7 is on the Wellston side. Like it's a haul for them to go to Southeastern, where instead of just them going to Wellston, which saves them substantial time, Division 6, which most of them are set to where it's a much easier drive to go to Southeastern, are going to Wellston. Like I just like that's just one of those things. That is,
To dive into that, you're better at that stuff than I am sometimes. I know that's not a lot of people might think Southeastern Wilson's not that much of a difference. What I have said is this: I'm happy with the expanded divisions.
Mhm.
We're going to talk about cross country in a little bit. I think they're
Yeah.
finally going to expand next year,
Yes.
and I'm happy with that because I think it's much needed in our area. Enrollments are starting to get way out of whack, and it's making competitive balance impossible. So I'm happy for that. So I think I'm probably patient with the Southeast District to take a year or two to kind of figure some of the wrinkles out or whatever. Overall, I said last year in baseball and some of the rain and all that. Overall, I think they've done a pretty good job. But I think what you're saying is fair. We probably do need to look at some of the smaller details and see if we can't clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's just one of those little things on that.
Sure.
Now I know we did a big thing on baseball a few years ago where it was certain divisions were going to Athens, where it was like all of those teams in the hockey were coming to Chillicothe to
Yeah.
go to the VA, and it didn't make sense travel wise for
Yeah.
anybody. But as you said, working through a lot of different things and,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out different aspects. So we got one conference left, sort of two.
Okay.
We got the SHAC. So we got the big side, which is the one, and the smaller side, which is the two.
Yeah, really all the way down through there. The thing that jumps out to me in the shack from top to bottom is North Adams up at the top there at the in league play. They play pretty much the bottom half team. So I mean they kind of control their own destiny, obviously being undefeated.
Mhm.
But Lynchburg play 11-5, 8-2 overall. And then you get into Fairfield, 12-4, 8-2. Fayetteville 12-4, 6-3. So North Athens is a D5 team in
Mhm.
volleyball, so that's going to be a tough draw for them. But D6 Lynchburg. Fairfield and Fayetteville, if they can stay away from some of those D6 schools, like I think Valley and South Webster become really dangerous in some of
Mhm.
those. South Webster's going to come in with a few more losses than normal. I think that's probably
Mhm.
something I'd want to stay away
Mhm.
from. Um, but in that shack there, you highlighted last week, and you're underappreciated. The great setter play they
Mhm.
get, and North Adams on that 10-0 is kind of setting the standard there
Yeah.
in the shack for sure.
Yeah, it's been outstanding for North Adams for quite a while, especially at that setter position. So for them, they've got a big one with Northwest on Monday, which this should be out before then. So that could be a nice seeding win for either of them. And yeah, do you think there's anything you missed? I don't
Well, I
think
mean, I think we got all the
yeah.
conferences. I'll talk more about the brackets next week. For our volleyball people, I know we have a lot of just volleyball
Mhm.
junkies like me that listen into this segment. I would keep an eye on that MVL over there to the east because Meadowbrook, that's a name you know
Yes.
really well. Riverview, because the reason I say that it's New Lex is in that one too.
Mhm.
So Meadowbrook will come into D4, New Lex will go 5, Sheridan D3. But again, by Sheridan standards, they're good, but
Right.
they're not like what they have
Mhm.
been. So New Lex is really, really good. Meadowbrook really, really good. You get all the way down to what's called now the Twin State,
Yeah.
and you'll get it in Fort Fry. They just beat Warren in 5. So again, Warren's one of the teams coming
Yeah.
into our D4. Fort Fry's D6. That's a dangerous, dangerous
Yeah.
D6 team. Marietta D3, Warren D4. And then if some people were wondering about Logan, they playing at Ohio Capital
Mhm.
Buckeye. I know Newark's really good in that conference, but
Mhm.
like Logan is a D2 school. So
Yeah.
just that's not really anything on our I just putting it on the radar of going into the bracket, some of the things that could impact the D4, 5, and 6 bracket.
Yeah, now you mentioned Logan. Whenever they jump in the MSL, that's just going to make a very good volleyball conference even better because Logan won that OCC last year.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're 12-5 this year. So I mean, while they're not going to win their
When you start
conferences,
talking about Newark, that's a different level.
yeah,
So I mean, like Logan's going to be just fine. They're making a move that's really good for their team.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I agree completely. So we will talk tournament action next week, as well as a little bit more on conference play in the in volleyball, as we'll probably preview a couple of those matchups that'll be taking place next week, as you talked about those already. That 10-7, 10-9. That's going to be a big week of volleyball in the area for sure. So now let's move on. Our favorite thing to do, running cross country.
Yeah.
So I know you looked up a couple of different meets that we're going to talk about. Once again, we're just ramping up a little bit going into um, getting ready for tournament time for or the postseason for cross country. So, Shane, you have a rundown of the Sugar Creek invite over at Washington Courthouse.
Yeah, it's a really cool course. I have not had a chance to get over there and see one myself, an event over there, but you know, they'll talk about some of the different. It's kind of a true cross country style course. They'll even run through a little bit of water and some different
Mm-hmm.
things, and the kids seem to really like it. It gets highlighted in our area quite a bit. You'll find that on Bomb's page. Just looking
Mm-hmm.
through some of the results, senior Avery Whiteman there on the boys side wins it on the home course. Then I scroll all the way down. Cedarville, a bigger school, comes in. But then Hillsborough, East Clinton, Wilmington. Here's one that jumped out at me. Obviously, I know I'm biased, but in fifth place of that thing with those big schools, Paint Valley. So I know they're kind of high on the lower division, a chance to maybe get out this year come tournament time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they scored 153. They're 6 points better than Washington. Miami Trace 176. So there's some schools, a bigger school like McClain 252. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on when you're running against some of the bigger schools when you're able to compete like
Mm-hmm.
that. That kind of jumps out at me. But if you go to the bombs page and look for that there on this date, you can see all the different ones. And then if I go over to the girls' side, just to throw out, you had some bigger schools there, like Hilliard Darby, a young lady won there, but then Miami Trace had an alley connect that was a second place runner there. West Union jumped out at me there because their team finished second
Mm-hmm.
behind Hilliard Darby, who
That's
is
a good bit bigger.
bigger. Yeah. Well, Cedarville's a bit bigger
Yeah.
too. So West Union in second place at 72 points. That jumped out at me. And then the other thing I noticed there, only 8 teams posted out of like 100+ runners on 8 teams posted, it shows you again, as some of these small schools get into the postseason, can you field a team? I know a lot of cross country coaches will tell me, man, if we just had one more runner that just finished, we could maybe get out of the district or
Mhm.
whatever. So it really is a factor. You got to have the 5 runners post to be able to put up the team. And so many of these schools have 3 or 4 really good individuals, and they just don't have the team. So again, that's on the bomb page. Now, what you got on a lot of your bigger schools, a lot of some of your higher level cross
Mhm.
country, they were looking to push themselves a little bit more there up at Pickerington North with what's called the Panther invite. You got to go over to Mile Split to find this.
I am
And
not a big fan of Miles
on
Split.
the
It's
on the
dude, Bomb's page was so nice when it was just like, hey, everyone just uses Bomb's page. But now I know there's like,
well, and it is Mile Split. I'm sure if you're a cross country person, you're used to it. It's not as user friendly, like in terms
yes.
of just finding some of your stuff, and I think it's because it's just covers so many more
Now,
different things.
Kai William showed me last year like a couple things. He was just like clicking around. It was like super easy. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I can barely operate this website at all. Like Bomb's page, super easy. Sorry.
No, no, you're not wrong. So,
Yeah.
like, the mile split here shows me on the boys' side that Fairfield Union won that thing,
Mhm.
and this is a big one. I counted probably almost let's see, 532 runners is what it's showing here. Unioto comes in behind Granville there in third, Chillicothe in fourth. Looking down through here, Warren was involved in this. Uh, yeah, you just don't, you're getting into some really big schools here.
Mhm.
Benton County was in that field. And then so you go down. Uh, but what a great test for a
Yes.
lot of these schools as you go. And I know over on the girls' side, we talked about the individual runners here that have been so
Mhm.
good. That they'll go as well. So if I pull up that girls' side, I know that what they'll do a lot of times is they'll go to a situation where they'll try to put their teams in this situation for their top runners,
Yeah.
so they know their team's a little overwhelmed, but they want to try to push that away. So let me see if I can find here
Yeah,
on the
Fairfield
girls'
Union.
side.
If you've been paying attention the last couple of years on here, you know how talented Fairfield Union is as a team, cross country wise. As they've been outstanding on the boys' side, girls' side, Athens has been outstanding
Yes.
recently as
Um,
well.
Vanessa Conley, here's an
Mhm.
example of what I'm talking about. We've talked about her a lot on the show. Vanessa Conley, the outstanding runner for Adena, winning everything around here. So this
Mhm.
gives her a chance to go up, run against the high level competition, you know. And she finishes ninth. So
Nice.
that was
Yeah.
impressive. Um, Freshman from Fairfield Union, Sadie Schultz was second in that field. I thought that was an impressive finish. Cameron Walker in
Mhm.
seventh. So she finishes a couple spots ahead of Conley there from Unioto. So she's starting to peak at the right time.
Mhm.
Again, Warren in action, so forth. And then if I go all the way down here again, the field is unbelievable. Like 353 girls on the field. But this is where it separates a little bit. You've got to go all the way down to seventh to find Fairfield Union. Just about everybody above is a much bigger
Mhm.
school from different parts of the state. Then you do get down 10, 11, you get like Warren, Unioto respectively, and Vinton County at 13. So that gives you an idea when you know what those programs are usually like week in, week out, and our results,
Mhm.
you go look at those types of fields and you're like, okay. That's where these programs, um, again, our theme of the show, go time.
Mhm.
These people are looking far beyond winning their league titles, be it individual or what they're looking at. Okay, where do I stack up as I start to get ready to run at the regional level?
Yeah, it's an outstanding area when it comes to cross country, especially at the highest of highs. But it's good to hear that our local runners are going out and challenging themselves. So, um, cross country will be starting in the postseason here in the
Yeah,
next few
and we'll
weeks.
we'll try to break that down. That's all I got on the cross country side. If you want to take us down through golf, I'll try to add in what I can about maybe some of the courses. I know you're going to try to highlight some of the teams and kids.
Yeah, so on the boys' side in golf, so you're at the district level in everything but Division One. Now, Division One on the boys' side plays the week after at the state, so they have pretty much their own time. Now, it could be like the Monday after, but I know they are later on, so they are still in sectional play. So,
Okay.
that'll be, I believe, this week at Crown Hill in Division One. So some of the local teams that'll be there, we'll see how they do. We'll be able to talk about that next week. Now, Division Two on Wednesday, October 1st at Crown Hill is the Division Two district. The top two teams in our area seem to be Westfall and Fairfield Union. They've traded wins the last couple of weeks. However, Crown Hill, Westfall's home course. So should give Westfall a pretty big advantage in that aspect. Would that be the correct line of thinking?
Well, I mean, you think so. I mean, yeah, I've always felt like Crown Hill's kind of when you're talking about the better golfers now that you start to separate, most people will tell you, the higher level golfer will tell you Crown Hill's kind of a second shot golf course. As you start to drop down a little bit in the caliber, I would talk about it. It's a much harder driving golf course than you think because you have a lot of different blind tee shots. You got a lot of things you got to kind of carry that, again, the elite golfers don't think anything of.
Mhm,
Whereas you get some mishits and some different things that brings penalty strokes, where that can still be a factor, or the teams that advance
mhm.
maybe still have a 4 or a 5. Because keep in mind you play 5 now,
Yeah.
4 and 5 that still has some trouble. But yes, on the higher level golfer that they ball striking is a little bit more assumed. I can understand why they think it's more. Their par threes are really difficult there. When they want to set the course up really hard, they can. Sometimes it borders on, it's a bit much.
Yeah.
But it's everyone's got to play it, and it does. Usually, when you set up the golf course a little bit harder, it does kind of separate the middle of the pack away from the top half in a hurry.
hmm Yeah, that'll be really interesting to follow those top two. But one team to really keep an eye on, probably for this year, but also in the future, Meigs finished third last week at the sectional. Their top four players listed, all freshmen. And you finish third and what's a very good very good sectional. Circleville finished fourth last week. They also have a lot of experience at Crown Hill, as that's local to them as well. So I think Westfall Fairfield Union probably the favorites, but keep an eye on Meigs, Circleville, and several other teams as well. But yeah, those are the big ones when it comes to the district at Crown Hill in Division Two. But the race for the individual crown. Last week, Lynchburg's Noah Wilkin won the sectional by 2 strokes. Unioto's Callaway Ratliff was 4 strokes off. He's probably the second biggest of the non-team players
Okay.
in this because you have the top teams. You have Brendan Bigler, Colton Brungarth of Westfall, very experienced on this course, very good golfers anyway. Fairfield Union's Caden Featheroff, Bryce Leppy, Circleville's Brady Reuter, and then Meigs, Jack Glaze, Ethan Grimm, just some of those players. It's going to be a race. I feel like I saw it may have been a different division, but there's a possibility there's going to be a couple players out instead of just the one. We will see when it comes to that with the district play.
The one thing, again, when you're starting to get up into the top 5 to 10 players in the field, now you're talking about golf at a different level.
Mhm,
So what I'll say about that level of golf is you really need to go out and steal a birdie or two, maybe a birdie per side on some of the gettable holes because Crown Hill has a couple holes where if you drive the ball in play, it's gettable. But
mhm,
then there are other holes where you just got to kind of take your medicine
mhm,
and know it's really important. That's why the experience is such a big factor. You got to know some of your sight lines and some of the different things you take out of play. But if you're able if you're able to steal a birdie per side, now all of a sudden it doesn't maybe hurt you if you have the back to back bogey or things like that. I think what really hurts you out there is if you put that big number on the card, and again, when I'm talking about that level
mhm.
of golfer, I'm talking big numbers, even like a double or a
Yeah.
triple. That can almost derail an entire tournament run, and that's what makes golf such a harsh reality of like it's okay. Here's the one day, no matter what the conditions are. Now, if you played there in this last week, I bet it was wet. It was a hard
Mhm,
walk. I bet it was really long. Starts to dry out a little bit. Let's see if the wind picks up a little bit. But if it's a drier one, those lines become really, really important because that's where you can get yourself in trouble if you don't pick out the right sight lines off the tee. Because
mhm.
there's like probably about 4 holes right off the top of my head where it's kind of a blind tee shot. You've got to really know in your preparation where you're aiming.
hmm and then we're going to move on. Monday
Okay.
will be Division Three, playing at Elks Country Club in McDermott. Just looking at the scores from last week, Waterford looks to be the favorite. They shot a 309 as a team last week for a 15-stroke win over West, who was second. North Adams, Manchester look like they might be able to make a push as well. It's a little deeper group in Division Three. It looks to be like it's going to be a really talented group over there. I would say Waterford the favorite, as I said, they had shot so low last week. But can you talk about Elks a little bit to where what could affect maybe a team that goes in as the favorite?
Elks is a really neat course. It's got great character. Again, I can't imagine here in this last 7 or 8 days how long it had to play when it was wet. Tough walk up and down hills, but it is a beautiful, beautiful place, especially as we get closer to fall. It
Mhm,
really is. Um, but it can play long. So if it dries out a little bit and the wind stays down, that can help it a little bit. But I've always felt like it's already somewhat of a long golf course. As you get into the fall, it gets longer, and that's where you start to separate some of these players because it naturally puts some longer irons in their hand. Some different things like that. Where if you have length and you can continue to have short iron wedge into a lot of these greens, it's a lot easier. But look at the high school level, when you start forcing the 7 iron, 6 iron, 5 iron into play, you're just not going to have as clean a ball striking, and that can come into play there. And you get some tricky greens there, and 2 or 3 really key shots where you've got to avoid the big number because there's 2 or 3 holes out there that it might say par four on the card. It's more of a par 4.5, 5,
mhm,
and sometimes a bogey's a good score, and you've got to make sure you don't make double or triple.
right. I would be tripling all the time, but if I played well. So individually, this seems to be a very deep field. Last week, Christopher Phillips of Ironton St. Joseph
Yes,
won.
yes.
He's been outstanding. Only a sophomore, so keep an eye on him. Waterford's Reese Lang, Brock Hurley amongst the Wildcats there. South Gallia's Lincoln Shamblin finished second. Harrison and Owen Richards from West. West is a very deep team as well. Manchester's Parker Hayslip, we've talked about throughout the year. Christopher Hall from North Adams. One of my favorite names, Van Bennington from Fairfield, played well. And then Huntington's Tucker Taylor has had a
Yes.
really nice year.
Yes, yeah.
All of those players are amongst the favorites to push for the district title.
Right, and again, what's so neat about these golf courses is this is going to stretch you out a little bit in the length, and it's always interesting to see how they set the course up. But you do get out, and if you've had the experience on some of these golf courses, that is a big deal. But just like golf is growing at the highest level now, if you can hit it with some distance, you can kind of shrink some of these golf courses and keep them more manageable. And then obviously you got to chip it and putt it because you're not going to hit as many greens. So the ability to get up and down becomes huge.
And then moving to the girls' side, Division One Thursday at Lancaster Golf Club. Unioto, who won the sectional last week, Circleville Athens will be there as teams. I know they mix in with the East. I know Minerva's one of the teams coming in from the East. Um, some of the players: Faith Wynn, Aubrey Arnold, Kendall Mason, Kaylin Sterling, along with like an Isabel Perini, Miley Smith from Unioto, Perini from Circleville, who dominated the sectional last week, are all going to be fighting for that one spot to get to the state tournament.
Yeah, it's a beautiful course. Looking at the scorecard, it's been forever since I've been up there. But looking at the scorecard again, there's about a 800-yard difference somewhere in the 5,000 area that can set that up yardage wise over the 18 holes. And, there's a lot of similarities to JC's. I would say this course probably has some more severe trouble in terms of certain shots you got to be really careful of. And then I would say their greens are a little tougher. Um, JC's doesn't always offer outside of 3 or 4 holes. JC's doesn't offer a lot of difficulty right around the greens. Um, Again, if you're missing a lot of shots, I think the short game will be the challenge for a lot of them on this golf course because just a little bit more difficult in the slope and some of the speeds of the green and some different things like that.
Yeah, so that'll be one to watch for on Thursday. Um, have a chance to get to the state tournament for several of those golfers. And then Division Two, Tuesday at Crown Hill. The heavy favorites are going to be Zane Trace. Rosella Lovato
Yes.
and the Helber sisters have been outstanding. They've took 3 of the top 4 spots in the sectional. They've been outstanding all year. I would say they're the heavy favorites, but Logan Elm, Piketon, Minford, West Union are all strong teams as well that will be trying to make a push to reach a state tournament. Race for the individual spot. Guessing Lovato gets there with the team, but you got Piketon's Layla Kelly, who won a second straight sectional last week. Menford's Ava Flagg finished second to her. South Point's Samaya Bradburn, Trimble's Braylon Richards, Logan Elms, Naomi Starr, and then Adena's Avery Ader, just amongst some of the players that are outstanding in that tournament as well.
Well, I talked about Crown Hill, but I think there's got to be a huge advantage for some of the SVC kids who not only have had competition experience there, but have probably, if they're this good, they're obviously serious about the game.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have spent quite a bit of time up there playing over the years and just understand the comfort level. It's already a nervous day, right?
Mhm.
If you're on a golf course that you're familiar with, I don't care if you're just going out with your buddy on the weekend. If you're out on a golf course on every tee or every green, if you know what's out there and you know, okay, this is trouble. I know I want to be here. I'm really good when I'm here, but I struggle when that can calm you a lot. So the preparation for these kids goes a long way. Well, when you're lucky enough to play a golf course that's in your season rotation, that is a huge advantage.
Yes, for sure. So be sure to follow along with everything on that. I know Bomb's page typically has the results. Is it Wanamaker? The app.
The
Yeah.
well, I mean, I've got the some people that have the OHSA golf app, depending on what access you have there,
Mhm.
you can try to sign up sometimes there, the way they keep it with
Mm.
technology now. But yeah, the bombs page gives you a pretty good look to. I've also had a couple people mention, but I think it's more out of our area, and I apologize if it's not. There's a course called Pipestone over in the Dayton area.
Mhm.
Some of the other D2, but I think most of us, you and I were talking about that off the
Yeah.
air. We're pretty sure most of our kids out of our area would be over there, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So make sure you're checking out all of that stuff this week. We'll talk about it more in depth next week on who's getting to the state tournament, and then we'll be able to hopefully celebrate some big achievers at the state tournament here in a couple weeks as well.
Yeah, and that's the theme. It's the go time, and you get some are in the tournament, some are entering tournament, some are down the conference stretch, and that's what's going to make the show fun week by week. I know tonight we kind of jumped back and went to the team. We'll get to dive into some more of the individuals next week and kind of return to that flavor of show.
Yeah, so should be a fun week ahead. A lot of stuff here on the YouTube page as always. So make sure you like, subscribe, enable notifications, all of that stuff, just to be able to see all the content when it comes out. Because some of these interviews are really good with
They
the
are.
kids. The shorts are really good when you're getting to some highlighted plays. And then, of course, our shows, whether it be Overtime, the Coaches Call-In Show, Bad Company, any of our stuff, Road Eats as well. That's become a weekly thing with Derek and his father going to the different areas as well. So we've got live streams Thursday, Unioto at Zane Trace in volleyball. Friday, Zane Trace goes to Unioto in football. Those are big matchups. On the football side, make sure you check out uh, where you can watch Symmes Valley at Eastern Pike. That's going to be a big one. There's several other really big games in the area. Volleyball big games, soccer big games. We'll have tournament previews starting, or at least tournament seeding next week as we wrap up conference play in a lot of different leagues.
Yeah, well, right now it's fun because we're talking about all these maybes. Well,
Hmm.
next week we're going to know a lot more for sure's, right? In
Yes.
terms of what we're doing. But again, I think some of these conferences are even going to need that next week. That volleyball slate on 10-7 and 10-9, man, that's good.
Yeah, should be some really good stuff. And next week's show will drop on Tuesday instead of Monday because your boy is driving 15 hours on Sunday. So I doubt I get here in time to film, but Man, if you see me fall asleep next week on overtime, you'll know why. So, for Shane Combs, I'm John Bruce. You've been watching Overtime presented by Perfection One. Have a great rest of your week.